I mean, wow, that is huge amount of world building, and with the maps and the detail. And I will put a link to your website in the description of the video as well, so people can go and see that in more detail and look at that, because to me that is awe-inspiring, because I'm a total pantser, as writers tend to say. I can't plan things to that level at all, with the the links to future projects and the illustrated map and just the amount of detail. So how did you start with planning something of this scale, and where did the inspiration to do such a big project come from?
Thank you. So I think there's this truth that people always wish things that they don't have and wish something else. And I wish I could be a pantser, because I have so many stories in my head, and sometimes I stopped writing a story because I already knew what's gonna happen. So I knew the whole thing, and it just didn't absorb me anymore. I kind of lost interest in it because there was no mystery anymore. Even though I still believe that the story would have been really interesting, but it no longer was new to me. It was no longer something that I needed to explore. And sometimes I wish I even tried to pan something basically, and I couldn't, because um, I'm so, like, I'm a type of person who like, when I have a doctor's appointment and I write the time, okay, I have to be there at this, and then when I have to leave the house, when I have to get ready, when I have to, so I backward time everything. So I'm a bit, um I'm like this in my life. So it is not such a stretch and such a um strange thing. That is how I work. That is how my brain works. But while I was writing this, so I started writing, and I kept, so the map didn't come from beginning, but a lot of it was already in my mind. And the more I wrote, the more it felt like, oh, okay, so whether, so um one thing that I have a scientific background, so I studied informatics, computer science, computer vision. So one of the things that I learned from back then when I was writing a scientific article was that um, before we before we finished the work, I would start writing it, and I learned that from more experienced people, people who were kind of my mentors, and they gave me this idea to start um, like writing a formula first before I program what I wanted the experiment and what I wanted the algorithm to do. Because a lot of times while I was trying to write it, I realized, oh, this actually, I cannot make that sound like, this formula doesn't add up. So even though the method seems to be working, there should be something wrong with it. And that is one of those parts that when you try to put this together and to try to make this function. So when I create this map and I think, oh, that could not actually happen in this scenario, no matter how bizarre this is. So I'm going with something that it's so removed from our world. There are things that, I mean, there's magic, and people always say, okay, well, where do you stop that, right? Why don't you say, well, then magic happened and then solve this plot hole? But um, the way that you can make fantasy um, work is that you make it internally consistent. So that's what matters. That even if you say, I always find it a good example with this old, I think, kid joke that they say, like, how do you fit an elephant in the fridge? And then afterwards, like, you just, open the door and put the elephant. And then when you want to put a giraffe in the fridge, so the story is that you have to open the fridge door, remove the elephant, and put the giraffe. So as crazy as um, that is how, in a way, um, this is necessary for a fantasy world that is internally consistent. So that is an important part of anything that, like, especially fantasy, because I think real world has certain boundaries that people just have in their minds. But for fantasy to, when people read it and they say, oh, that could not happen, I could actually explain exactly how this could happen, even if I hadn't thought about it before, because there is this internal consistency. So it's kind of feels like intuitive, the same way that gravity works.